Welcome to the Blitz Growth Podcast. Listen in to learn how founders, entrepreneurs, and creators build and scale their businesses online. Let's get started.
Today on the podcast, we have Matt Karsten. So he is the founder of Expert Vagabond and has a very impressive track record with tens of thousands of social media followers, hundreds of thousands of blog visits, and he's been doing adventure travel for 10 plus years. And we're going to walk through everything that he's learned over that time and dive into his story and how he generates buzz, how he generates attention, and how he's been selling his content to some of the major top publications in the travel space. So Matt, nice to have you here.
All right. Thanks for having me. Well, like you said, I've been doing this about 10 years now. I started because I was kind of feeling lost and unhappy with my life, and I wanted to save some money. I was going to quit my job for a bit, go backpacking through Central America and kind of take a break. And I created the blog at the beginning of my trip, hopefully to share the journey with family and friends. But after a couple months, I began treating the blog more like a business and researching ways to earn income from it because I was having so much fun and I didn't want to stop. And I want to continue traveling as much as possible.
It's not bad. So when did you hit that point where you were like, okay, you've gone on this trip and you're like, okay, I really like traveling. A lot of people like traveling, but not many people can turn that into a business or turn that into something that they can live off and sustain. When did you sort of know that, travel blogging and capturing content while you travel was going to be a full-time job replacement opportunity?
Yeah, I didn't know it was going to happen at first. I thought it would be an experiment. I saw that other people were making it work, and I thought I'd give it a shot. It was probably a year into it of creating regular content that I started earning a little money from it. And I was like, oh, wait a second, maybe I could, put in more work into it and turn it into a full-time gig. The money that started coming in was starting to pay for some of my travel as well. So I was like, all right, this is great. How can I do more of it?
Got it. And there's a big thing with influencers. Now it's huge. Like, 10 years ago, it was, very small, not even a mainstream profession, which it is now. Yeah. But when you first got started, there is a lot of perks for being an influencer or having influence over a large group of people and getting those great opportunities. Because I think with what you guys do and creating content as well as travel blogging and having a blog, it's not just about the money you earn from that. It's also about the money you save. So how did you sort of start earning the money? Because I know you started out with probably getting free trips and stuff. And then you started, you really branched off because you created that blog, and that was kind of, I'm assuming, where some of the revenue came from. But what was the difference between getting free trips and free stuff compared to actually making revenue? Because free trips and free stuff is awesome, but you can't really live off that.
Yeah, in the beginning, I was living off of savings, and I had kind of a side business selling ebooks. So that was how I was making money initially. But when the blog started making money, I think it first started with affiliate marketing. It was how I first started earning any money. So I would have a page on the site dedicated to the gear that I used when I was traveling. Mm-hmm. And then I'd link to that page all over the place when I'd write other articles, here's what I pack, that kind of thing. And then eventually people would start clicking over. They'd find it useful. They'd click over to Amazon, and some, percentage would buy something, and I'd get a little commission. That's how I started earning income from the blog directly. The free trips, I think my first one was it was just a tour on a sailing catamaran. And they didn't pay anything, but it was a way for me to reduce my expenses, to get some, free activities. And then eventually I started getting invited by countries by their tourism board to kind of showcase their country to help promote tourism there. And again, that wasn't paid initially, but it helped reduce my costs or let me travel places that maybe I wouldn't have been able to afford at the time.
Okay. And did you find, so how did you get these invites? Like getting invited by a country is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
So how did you kind of get those opportunities? I think I have an idea why, but I'll let you explain first and then go with my guess.
Yeah, I mean, it was usually a marketing company that was working for the country's tourism board who was looking for influencers in the travel sphere to invite on these trips. Because maybe because they liked the photography or the video they produced or the blog posts that they wrote about. It could have been a combination of all that stuff. So I think that's how they were, and how they still do look for people is, they wanted to cover a certain aspect of travel, and so they try to find people that do that and invite them, and people that have a little bit of a following as well helps, I'm sure.
Yeah, because I was going to say I was going to guess it was the content because one thing that definitely differentiates people in that world of having what's the difference between someone who has a ton of followers and someone who has zero. Usually the number one thing is like, what's the content? That's usually the biggest difference of someone who has a lot of influence and someone who doesn't have much. But when did you start taking your content a little bit more seriously? Because when you sort of started out traveling, I'm sure you were just kind of, throwing something together in comparison to what you do now, which is, a massive setup, which we'll go over in a minute. But sort of when did you realize that the content was really important in this whole equation?
I mean, I noticed the more time I spent on articles or learning how to edit photos so they looked like, professional travel photos from National Geographic or something, that I'd get better reaction, and I was getting more people reading things. I was getting more engagement, and so I kept teaching myself better photography, better editing, looking to other kind of influencers, but maybe in a traditional sense. So for like travel, like Rick Steves, it's a guy who's been writing about budget travel for many, many years. And so I looked at his show, and what is he providing people? He's providing really useful information about these destinations that other people can act on, and it's useful. And that I realized that was a difference between maybe just writing kind of like a personal blog post that's only going to be interesting to a smaller number of people, as compared to a travel guide that lots of people will find interesting, and they'll be able to plan their own trip with that information.
Okay. And so the content on the written side was definitely an important part of it, it sounds, because that's where you got all of the traffic, which was feeding the affiliate stuff. At what sort of point did you decide that, okay, this affiliate stuff is good, but I know you do a lot of other things that helps you make money? Did you ever go down the path of doing you said you were selling ebooks, but did you go down the path of creating your own ebooks or your own courses on how to do this stuff?
I never really did. I liked the affiliate model because I let other people put all that work into creating these big courses or workshops or whatever, and then I just help promote them and I'll get a cut. So I feel like it's a little bit less work, and then I have a little more freedom to focus on other things or just travel to fun places. And then my income can kind of just roll in the background rather than doing all the customer service stuff or maintaining a big course or something like that.
Yeah, so definitely. So because I know a lot of people in the travel industry, they kind of it's kind of split down the middle between the people who go and create the courses and write the books and all that sort of stuff, and then the people who kind of create the content. Because I noticed that nobody's doing both. Like you either go down the content path, like content creation in terms of photography, video, and affiliate stuff, or you go down the path of teaching people how to travel, and there's all this types of stuff with Airbnb hacking or travel hacking, points hacking, all these guys creating kind of courses and stuff around that. So I don't really know anybody doing well at both. Do you?
Yeah, there's some people that do both, but then they also to manage that, they have huge teams of people, and sometimes I don't know. It's just my personal view is I don't feel like having a giant team of people to manage. I kind of like doing stuff on my own. Yeah, exactly. Maybe I'm a little lazy, but
no, you're doing the right thing. But yeah, that's awesome. And so I know also that your content has gotten really, really good in terms of photography and video. So how did you sort of start getting people more interested in your content? Because I think that was probably one of the leading aspects of your accounts blowing up, but correct me if I'm wrong. And so how did you sort of start getting more and more people to see that, and how did you promote that to kind of get to where you are now with, thousands of followers and, tons of website traffic and all that sort of stuff? And I know also I'd like you to mention what that content's gotten you now in terms of getting featured in National Geographic. Like you said, that was kind of like the type of photography you wanted to do, and then you ended up getting in there and being that type of photography.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the ways I kind of grew my audience is going on kind of wild travel adventures and documenting it, like hitchhiking across America for 5 weeks, traveling, backpacking in remote destinations like Afghanistan or Greenland, and doing things like that kind of created a buzz, to people that were reading about it through social media or something. They, see a video about a guy traveling in Afghanistan, an American, and they're like, whoa, I didn't know you could do that, and then they, so I'd get a lot of people coming into my site through kind of these projects like that. And then they'd stick around and read other things, or maybe become a subscriber to continue reading and following along. And then SEO is also a big part of what I do. So I also get a lot of readers who maybe they're planning a trip to Iceland or to Mexico, and I spend a lot of time on SEO to get my guides about those destinations high in Google search rankings. So people will find me through that. They're looking for their own, information for their own trip to Iceland. They find my guide. They find it really useful. Then they start reading other articles about Iceland, and then maybe they become a subscriber because they enjoy all the content. So that's helped a lot for growing as well.
Yeah. So for the listeners, I think one of the things that we can learn here is the quality of the content is really important here, because, I know the little that I do know about SEO is the quality really has to be there, because Google doesn't rank low quality stuff usually. And if it is ranked, it'll get replaced pretty quickly if it's an important keyword. So I think the main takeaway there is, you've got to have the quality, and then you do have to put in the work for optimizing that for SEO. Do you do mostly on-site SEO or off-site SEO?
Everything, a little bit of everything. I start with on-site, and then, then you got to reach out and try to find people to build links with. Get your content on other people's sites that are that are relevant. Maybe find, if I'm doing something about Venice, a guide to Venice, then I find other sites who have written about Italy or Venice in particular, and reach out to them and say, hey, here's this cool guide I put together. Could you, your readers find this useful in some way, and things like that. But lots of on-site too.
Yeah, well, I'm sure over the years you've got some really great relationships with people too. Getting some links from some of those tourism boards for those countries, that wouldn't be bad.
For sure, yeah, that helps. Or news. I'll try. The other thing I'll try to do is if, let's say, a news site wants to do some kind of interview or a piece on something about my site or a trip I've done, I'll try to sneak some links in to other parts of my content, when they're asking these questions, and here's a guide to Venice, as an example, and then maybe they'll link to it, and that helps.
Yeah. And I don't even think that's a bad thing, because I think it's actually providing more opportunity for the reader to learn more if that's something that they're particularly interested in, because, you can't get everything from one quick little interview. And there might be certain questions that readers are way more interested in. So if you're talking about, your Afghanistan trip, your Iceland trip, your Antarctica trip, and someone's going to Antarctica, chances are they're probably going to want to learn a lot more about that than just your 3-sentence answer that you went over in the news article or the interview. So I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but it's a win-win because, you get those backlinks, you create good content. So it works out pretty well. The other thing that I was going to say is, all right, I had a few more questions here. Well, actually, wait, let's go into your actual video and image content. So I know you do quite well with creating like stunning imagery and video. So how has that sort of been a revenue stream for you as well?
Well, yeah. So the images and the photos are something that tourism boards are looking for their own content to share on social media or on their own websites. So, they could just hire a photographer maybe locally, but these days what they're finding is they can get a photographer who also has a following, and it's better return on their investment to find someone like me who is writing whole articles about destinations plus can do the photography. So they sometimes they'll license my images to use for their own use, or video as well. Video is a big one.
Yeah. Did you do anything specifically to become a source for that, or did that just naturally happen?
I go to travel conferences every once in a while, and I think that helps a little bit with building relationships. But part of it is them just kind of finding you. So, for example, I'll give you one example. On my trip to Greenland a couple years back, I actually reached out to the tourism board and said, "Hey, I want to do this. I'd love to do some kind of project with you guys and promote tourism to Greenland because I'd love to come and do this hike over there." And at the time, they said, "No, it sounds great, but we're not really interested at the moment." And never heard from them. So I decided to self-finance the trip myself. I did it anyway. Went on my own. Got amazing content, took awesome photos, then put together my own guide on this particular hike. And then they came back to me and said, "Hey, now you're outranking us for this destination, and we'd like to work with you for some future things." After they had turned me down initially. And so sometimes, I understand for a tourism board, they probably get a lot of people reaching out like I did, and they don't know who's worth working with or not. But then if you can show them results like that, then all of a sudden they'll suddenly want to work with you when they can see the results.
Yeah. And so video and image content is so important now that you have Instagram, YouTube as being like major sources of people just spending hours and hours a day looking at more so than written content in some aspects. So how do you sort of take these amazing photos and videos? Is there kind of like, let's say 3 tips that you can give on, leveling up your photography and then leveling up your video creation? Like, what are the 3 most important things to make the biggest difference?
Sure. For photography, I think it's just studying as much as you can about it. There's it's not about having the best camera. First of all, it's I would say post-processing is very important, making your photos really pop so they don't look like just any photo that anyone could take. Messing with contrast and colors and things like that to make the photo really stand out. And you can learn that stuff for free on YouTube, or you can take some courses about it or workshops, but spending a lot of time learning those techniques will help a lot. And for video, I think it's important also just to be able to tell a story, being able to show a destination and have good kind of useful information about it, as well as the pretty scenery is going to go a long way with video, as opposed to just walking around with a camera on yourself the whole time, not really saying much. I think it's more useful to, have someone learn something about the destination somehow, as well as having really pretty scenery. Yeah.
So it's got to provide value in the eye-pleasing category and also the knowledge category.
Exactly.
I really agree with that, actually. Like, you can look at a really nice video or image for a certain amount of time, but then, it gets boring if it's not teaching you something. And I think everybody likes to learn like unique things about places. Like when I'm traveling, I know I really want to learn like, something that not everybody would know about this, because then that's interesting to me. And also later on when I talk about my trip, that's something that I've taken back from the trip and been like, oh, did you know actually this? I found this super interesting. And it's something that's, going to be memorable for the rest of your trip when it's something unique. Whereas if you just, have general content, it never gets remembered. Like general content just fades in with the, masses of general content there is. But how do you elevate your content? So apart from kind of like contrast and messing and making your images pop and then telling personal stories, like you have some great content over the years. How have you sort of gotten more attention on this and made yours stand out over, other people in the travel space? Because there's so many travel bloggers and so many people trying to create content and become a travel blogger. How do you sort of make sure that your stuff is always better?
It's difficult with so many people, but you got to try to do, I don't know, for photography, for example, if you're taking photos at noon, timing can be important. At noon at some destination, that's the same photo that, half of all the other tourists that are visiting are going to have, but the people that wake up at sunrise to get shots that are, very postcard-like, with not too many people in the photo and with excellent lighting, things like that. Not as many people are going to spend the time, to get up super early in the morning to create that content. They're going to want to sleep in after partying all night or something, and then they're going to get the shot at noon that everyone else has that looks exactly the same. So like spending that extra time creating the content and treating it like actual work and like a serious business, I think helps a lot. I know we tried to do that when we came and visited you and played a Carmen. We tried to get up there, get to those pyramids, but it's difficult sometimes. There was a lot of people. Really difficult. I think especially because a lot of people probably don't take it serious enough as a full-time job. Like if you want to be one of the best in that industry, and you've got to create, sounds like you're saying, unique content, and so takes sacrifices sometimes to do that. One less drink, and you can't treat it like another vacation. It has to have some more seriousness put into it.
Yeah, that's really good. So just going back to a few things when you started. So how did you make your first $100? Like everybody usually remembers their first $1 or first $100 they made online, just because it's a pretty amazing moment. But how'd you make your first $100 if someone was just getting started from scratch?
Well, from the travel blog, it was the affiliate marketing stuff. So I think someone was buying, like the backpack I had used on Amazon, and then getting a small commission from that. And then watching those commissions grow as more people read the blog was pretty exciting. But I got my first taste of making money online when I was selling those ebooks before I left. So I had written a guide on nightclub photography, because that's what I was doing for work as kind of a part-time job. And I wrote, there's a bunch of information about like the camera settings and flash settings to shoot to get all the cool lighting, but get people being crisp and detailed and clear in the shot in dark nightclub environments. And so I had written this guide about all the settings I used and how to do this stuff. And there was really not a lot of information online about that. And so the people that were interested in that would find my guide and would buy it for $20 or whatever it was. When those sales started first coming in, I couldn't believe it. I was, you hear a little ding on my email saying it was in a new sale, and then they kept going and going, and I got really excited. And that's how part of what got me into, interested in starting the travel blog, is because I had already had a taste of that.
Well, the amazing thing is you were so far ahead of everybody. Nobody else was really going down that path of selling ebooks yet. You were very early. There were a couple you even started.
Yeah, there were a couple of people, and that's how I, got the inspiration to try it. It was actually, Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek was one of the books that got me into all of this stuff, and started researching all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's got to be one of the most recommended books to entrepreneurs. I think it pops up so often.
Life-changing for me, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, me too as well. I think, the efficiency stuff is key. There's never enough hours in a day. And if you can maximize the output for each one of those hours, it's, you get a lot more done. Yeah. Okay. So that's first $100. So, you started with ebooks. How come you didn't continue with ebooks? Like that was obviously working when you started. Something you didn't like about it?
I don't know. There were some other people that had ebooks, and I guess I thought I didn't need to compete with them, or that there wouldn't be a big enough market for it. So yeah, I don't know why I never. Maybe I'll try it again in the future, but for whatever reason, I got into these other forms of earning income and never went back to the ebook.
Yeah, well, it's probably a bit more exciting making income from traveling and to an amazing place and going on these adventures and sitting at home writing a 10,000 word ebook.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. All right. So the other thing is, email marketing is just so important online now because, that's one of the personal ways to connect with people. Usually people who are on your list are pretty interested in the things that you're doing. So, I really suggest a lot of the time that people start building an email list as soon as possible. How did you sort of get your first 1,000 email subscribers? What was the process there?
The first 1,000, probably it was just, I created a newsletter, a monthly newsletter, and then started promoting it on popular blog posts, as I think how I first started getting those subscribers. But then right now I've got about 20,000 subscribers, I believe. But to get to that number, I had to do things like giveaways was a big thing. I either would sponsor them myself or work with companies to sponsor them. So one time we gave away a trip to Sweden with me, and the tourism board helped, was going to fly someone along with me to Sweden to capture photos of an area, and things like that grew. Gave me a lot more subscribers with people interested in winning those things.
Yeah, well, I suppose if you've got, again, unique wins every time. But I suppose if you've got like a really unique experience like that, then yeah, you probably do get a lot of people who want to win that. And, it really helps, I suppose, if you've got the tourism boards and other brands, contributing to the prize. It really helps a lot. Because, you obviously don't want to pay for all of that and then find out that it was actually costing you like, $10 a subscriber to get those people. So yeah, it's a great way to do it, especially if it's unique and interesting. All right, so there's a lot of pluses and positives there. What were a few big mistakes that you made and you wish you had avoided, or if you were doing it again, you would just be like, no, we're definitely not doing that again. One or two of those that you would go back and tell your young self not to do.
No, I don't think there's any huge mistakes, but some of the things I wish I had done differently is maybe spend more time on video earlier on. I wish I had, spent more time creating YouTube content a lot earlier, and maybe hiring other people to help is the other thing. Is I wanted to do everything myself and couldn't give up control for way too long, and I'm still like that. But I've got some people helping now, but I wish I had gave up control and hired some people to help build the business earlier.
Yeah, well, it's so hard when it's like, your name is on that work. It's really hard to kind of give it to someone else and trust that they're going to do as good a job. Because the other thing is, nobody else does as good a job as you because nobody else will care as much as you.
Exactly. They're not invested in it as much as you are.
Exactly. So that's one thing I've always struggled with too. It's like, you can never find someone who's going to do as good a job as you, but sometimes you just have to accept that's the way it's going to be. And you need to continually work on processes and systems that get them as close as possible to producing something that you would produce. Because, if you're going to sit down and edit a video for 20 hours, that's a lot of time that you're giving up that you could be going out and doing other stuff that's going to actually, make a bigger impact. So instead of like shooting one thing and spending 20 hours, editing, you could be shooting 5 things, getting someone else to edit for 100 hours. So, there's definitely some upsides to that as well. And the YouTube thing is interesting for sure. Like, I find it hard to, like, everybody wants to jump on these social channels earlier. And like the guys who got on really early obviously do really well, but then you never know how to pick it because, there's all these other brands like Periscope came up and all of these other social media brands that or networks that gain traction for a little bit and then just die out. And I feel like, Google and Facebook have just been the leaders for so long. And so the original guys that got in early on that have done really well, but how do you pick the next one? Because there will be a next one.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, I just don't know how people pick those. I suppose it's a bit of luck as well.
Yeah, I agree. I'm sure there's a little bit of luck.
Yeah. Okay, so where do you focus most of your time now then for all of your content and distribution and that sort of thing? What's your kind of day look like when you're sort of creating, and where are you focusing on?
I'm writing new articles, spending time on SEO for older articles as well as new ones. With the pandemic at the moment, writing about travel isn't as lucrative as it was because no one is researching international travel at the moment. So that's been a challenge. And I've been trying to write more content around remote work and maybe gear guides, things like that. Because I also write about kind of nomadic living and making money online a little bit on my site. So I'm trying to write more content geared that way until people start traveling again, which will happen eventually, but no one knows when, of course. So that's been most of my time. I think tonight I'm going to be reviewing some standing desks for home office, that kind of thing. So for the affiliate marketing side of things, and for all the people that are going to be working from home. I'm just creating content mainly. Yeah,
well, I changed to a standing desk and it's life changing. I went with the Evo desk. So if you're gonna check out some desks, check out Evo. They were really good. We ended up buying a few of those actually. And definitely worth the investment. Like it's a little bit more to get some of the like upgrades and stuff, because they give you a straight normal desk and then you add on your upgrades as you sort of need them. And if you're like me and you spend a lot of time working, it's definitely worth a little bit more if you're going to spend 5+ hours a day using it. So that's a great idea. And it sounds like that's where you kind of started anyway, like equipment review, equipment usage, and then affiliate. So it sounds like it's that thing has really worked for you and you've kept being consistent at it. Okay. Awesome. Some other ones. Okay, so we went over a few things you would change, a few things you would do differently. If you were getting started like right now and you really wanted to go into photography and film and that sort of stuff, and maybe start at YouTube, what would you suggest a newbie do if they were going to start out today and go down the path that you would recommend of like video and YouTube combination?
One way, first, learn the craft, spend hours and hours researching on editing techniques and, composition for photography and how to tell a story through video, things like that. Maybe take some courses about it, invest in yourself that way and learn as much as you can. But then, a lot of people are doing that stuff. So to stand out, I usually recommend to kind of create a project that maybe would have some marketing value for news organizations. So, for example, I don't know, especially for photography, like going to a destination and creating many photos about that destination. Maybe have a theme around the photos, and then take that, turn it into some kind of photo essay or project, and then pitch it to news organizations to try to get more coverage and get some backlinks to your site or some social media sharing from larger organizations that have a lot more followers than you do to reach more people. So for example, I was going to say, for example, my hitchhiking trip across the United States, I could have just done the hitchhiking trip and then done it for myself, and it would have been the end of it. But instead, I put together a big series of articles about the trip. I was sharing live on social media. People could track and see where I was within the country, like as I was going along, and I was sharing updates on the people that were picking me up and things like that. And it kind of turned into its own little project, and people started following along as I went. And then other sites were reaching out saying, we want to interview you about this trip, and like, how are you hitchhiking in the United States these days? I thought it wasn't safe, and all these things like that. And I started getting some media attention from that, which helped, more people learn about my site.
Yeah, it's super interesting, because I know you kind of talked to me about a story with your laptop getting stolen, and how that sort of blew up and became this epic story that thousands and thousands of people were following. And so, yeah, I think, the storytelling thing is something that you're really good at, because, it seems like the theme across all of this is that you're telling these really interesting stories alongside with really good content. And that's sort of how you grow these, these massive audiences that you have. So, yeah, it's really interesting. And so what sort of challenges do you go through now in the day-to-day? So obviously, when you get started, you have different challenges to where you are now. Like you're pretty far into this now, so I'm sure the challenges have changed. But maybe do a comparison, like what was the biggest challenge for getting started, and then what's the biggest challenge you have now, do you think?
They're kind of the same, actually. And the biggest challenge in the beginning was getting noticed and getting people to follow along and building an audience. And I think it's the same because everything keeps changing. Algorithms change and trends change. And, at one point, sharing things on Facebook was really easy. Now it's become a lot more difficult, and you got to find ways to, get your message or your content out to more people as the landscape continually changes.
Okay, so you'd say getting the attention or demanding the attention in super crowded environment is still the one and only challenge.
Yeah, and just staying up to date on all those changes. You can't just sit back and think one thing is going to continue working. You have to continually learn and adapt.
So do you ever get worried about these social platforms, because they sort of, they started out great. There was so much reach. Now they, severely limit organic reach. They're the ones that kind of still own all your followers and that sort of thing. Do you get worried about that? And if so, how do you sort of counteract that and give yourself a safety net?
For sure. Yeah. And, email subscribers is one, a subscriber list is one thing that you would own, and then it's a way your followers can stay up to date with you. If you have their email address, if they've given it to you. So that's one way, is to have that core group of audience who will open your emails when you have something new to write about. That helps a lot.
They're the true loyal fans, the email subscribers.
Exactly.
They're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So what sort of content do you actually drip into your emails? There's so many different things you could talk about. How do you choose what to write about in those emails to keep people engaged, or do you segment it, or what's your strategy with, keeping people opening your emails?
Yeah, I keep mine pretty general. I'll have updates on articles that I've written lately. I'll go over. I'll remind them about articles in the past, usually around travel, kind of travel guides, budget travel, or things like remote work. There's a lot of people now looking into working online and remote work setups due to the pandemic. So I've reminding people about all articles I've written in the past on those subjects. And then sharing, I also share, other people's articles that I've read on the internet, that I found interesting or useful. So I hope people open it to learn something new, and keep them interested.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good one as well. Like, not just making it all about yourself, or if you have a brand or something, not making it all about just your brand. Pick a topic, or even like, it can be really niche as well, actually. But just pick a topic and just deliver the best knowledge and resources for that topic as you can, even if it's yours or not. If it's not yours, create some better content. If it is yours, then great, but have a variety of stuff in there. Because I think, that's really important. You need to be the expert on the topic, not just, it's not just like a self-promotion channel, because otherwise you will get those unsubscribes. That's a good point. All right, so wrapping this up, I had a few smaller questions. You work with a lot of different brands, or I know you used to work with a lot of brands, doing the influencer marketing stuff. What are sort of 3 things that those brands are really looking for, to anybody else who's trying to do partnerships with other brands and trying to be valuable?
They want good content, whether that's photography or video, as well as someone who has a following already, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a giant following, but it has to be targeted. People that are interested in independent travel, or or photography, for example. They're going to look for people that have a very engaged audience, who also can provide them with good content that they can use for their own channels and reasons.
Okay. And you guys can't see this because this is an audio podcast, but Matt's video looks amazing and mine looks terrible. So Matt, what's some tips for getting really good video? I know there's a few little tips and tricks that make a big difference. What would be your advice to people who are trying to shoot content, trying to get good video content, and how can they possibly improve that?
I don't know. Lighting is everything. So, for example, I have a window off to my side here, bringing in natural light. Whereas I'm looking at yours right now, you're kind of backlit, so you've got the window behind you, and it makes a big difference where the light is coming from, for sure. So learning that kind of stuff about photography and video, that lighting is very important. Like I was mentioning earlier, getting up early, or the time right before sunset, the golden hour, it has just really soft, natural light. Things like that is one part of making good images. I don't know, just researching different equipment. Equipment's not everything, but it can help in some situations, like in low light situations, things like that.
Well, yeah, in nightclub photography, I'm sure it's all about the equipment.
Yes, it's
lighting and
equipment, and like knowing your gear, like knowing that there's all kinds of different settings on a flash, for example, a camera flash, where you can have the flash go off before the photo or after the photo, and things like that, and how long the flash stays on, how bright it is. There's all kinds of settings that, if you don't know about those settings, you're missing out on opportunities for creating great images. Okay.
So you heard it from Matt. The most important thing when you're doing video and imagery is the light, because I'll probably put a screenshot somewhere to show the difference of knowing how to use light and not knowing how to use light. Awesome. Well, Matt, it's been so much fun. I'm sure there's going to be so many learnings from this. Just to wrap up, kind of, what's your current project? What are you working on? Where can people find you? This is your moment to, get people interested in you and to come check you out.
Yeah, well, my site is expertvagabond.com, and I write about travel and remote work, nomadic living kind of stuff. So lately I've been putting together some articles about, tips for digital nomads and how to work from home, things like that, things I've been doing for many years. So I wanted to share that kind of information with people. And I'm on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, same handle, Expert Vagabond.
Nice. It's rare that someone can get the same handle for everything now.
Yeah, very rare.
Awesome. I'll put all those links in there and everything. And if anybody is interested in better photography gear or shooting better content, definitely check out Matt's stuff. It's really, really good. Also, just following you on Instagram is insane. It makes you want to travel way more. Even though it's not so possible right now, but when everything does open back up. And thanks for joining. And we'll talk to you guys next time. Stay tuned. We're going to talk to more creators, more entrepreneurs about their life story, how they started, how they got to where they are now, and hopefully teach you a bunch of stuff. So thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks for having me.
If you like the show, remember to share it with friends and coworkers. You can also check us out and share past episodes at blitzgrowth.com. Hit subscribe and leave a review letting us know how this podcast has personally helped you and your business. If you have any topics you'd like us to cover, make sure to send us an email via blitzgrowth.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on our next episode.